The Third Side of the Coin, brought to you by Excalibur Coaching and Consulting.
Hello, and welcome to the Third Side of the Coin podcast. This is our 14th episode, and today we want to take our time to talk about taking time off. My name is Alex Aberly, and I'm joined today by my co host, Tim Wan. Hello, Tim. How are you?
Good, Alex. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much.
Great. So today we're continuing with our last podcast on reinvention or reinventing oneself. And I think on our last discussion, we discussed or pivoted quite a lot around self-reflection and going back to it. I'd like to pick up on that, especially on self-reflection. So what is reinvention? So reinvention is not like putting on new clothes or walking out the front door with your left foot, you walk out with your right foot. That can be small steps or part of it, but that's not really the main thing. When we start taking a look at what reinvention could mean for an individual, we're talking about transformation and not change. Right? The difference between transformation and change, you can always go back to your previous state. I may change the way I'm doing things, but I can always go back to the previous way of doing things. Transformation is taking you to the next level where it changes the way you completely do something and it improves on it. So the opportunity or the cost of going back to how you previously did something is less of a risk to you when you transform. As we look into transformation, what does that mean in the context of reinvention? When we're transforming ourselves, it can only happen when we spend some time to self-reflect, because we can't transform anything if we're not aware of it. And the greater amount of transformation happens when you realize, aha, wow, isn't that big? Isn't that different? It's a bit like when you first was chopping everything with a knife in the kitchen, and then you got yourself a food blender. That's transformation, because you realize, why the heck did I always use this knife when I've got a when I have a food blender myself. So as we step into the space of transformation, does that mean that I have to go away for a few days or weeks or years, take a sabbatical? In this day and age, it's very difficult, simply because of the environment we're in. One, we're in a gig economy. Two, there's a lot of uncertainty around us right now. And three, we're living in an age of freneticism. So we're always on. If you think about it, with our, for those of us who use a smartphone, tablet, laptop, smart TV, connected kitchen, all that, we're always on. We just haven't stopped. And with that, when you start looking at the way we start thinking, is that there's a lot of things competing for the attention of our time 24/7, whether it is our work, whether it is our hobbies or obligations or responsibilities, and even time to go to the washroom. They all compete for time. And when they start competing for time, the way we start to manage it is we start compartmentalizing things around us, allocating, pigeonholing time to whatever activities we have. And over time, what happens is that we start to lose our reference point of ourselves. So instead of having one reference point, which is just me, we have many reference points of referring to, I'm doing this now, I'm doing this now, I'm doing this now, I'm doing this now. I am doing this now. It's not me. So Alex, what has your experience been on this?
Oh, as far as taking time off, that's definitely a great topic. I think it's so impossible in some situations for the individuals to understand how important it is and how big of an impact it could be to take a step back and really think about what that time off, where to find it, how to carve it out. So when I work with my clients, I'm noticing that a lot of times when they're faced with big changes, whether it's the job loss and potentially going through some relationship changes, they definitely tend to struggle to understand that sometimes it's really going to be worth to first pause before making any decisions, because if you're not in the right frame of mind where you can understand your own value as an individual that you can bring to that next stage of your experience, you're probably not going to get there fast, even though you're trying to do that. So that's really what I'm seeing. So maybe you can tell our viewers, and hopefully some of the individuals, just like my clients, where to start. It's not just about importance, I suppose, but where can they start with the whole process of transformation and taking time off.
Well, I mean, Alex, we had a short conversation before this recording, and we realized just the work you're involved in, it's mentally and physically draining. It's like back-to-back counseling or conversations you're doing, and everyone's at different stages in their mindsets or emotions, and you being the litmus or the lightning rod there needs to absorb that and then not reinterpret, but position it in a way that that person can see a way out or a way to change or transform their behavior. The first question I would, throwing back the question at you, is like, when you're faced with these back-to-back sessions, right, how are you able to recenter and refocus yourself? Because you're totally 100% in that 30-minute slot. Then you might go and grab a coffee and come back. It's another 30-minute slot where you actually don't know what that person's emotion might be like at that stage. So, you're constantly operating at the edge of your wit, of your intelligence, of your stamina. I mean, what is it that you do to have that cat nap? What is it that you do?
Yeah, I wish sometimes there was an opportunity to do that. I like the idea of catnap, but no, I do not do that. I had a conversation years back with one of very successful CEOs, and he's actually given the idea of taking short naps. And the way he was doing it, he'll take a tennis ball and hold it in his hand and sit in the chair, close his eyes, and taking a nap doesn't mean fully fall asleep. And actually what he was saying is he was sitting with his eyes closed and holding the tennis ball. He knew the nap was over and he was starting to go into deep relaxation. When the ball dropped, it was his time to be done with that. Maybe I should try something like that. I don't know whether it works or not, but ultimately what I am noticing, I feel rested because I need to bring my whole person, my full attention into my coaching sessions, is when I deliberately and proactively actually schedule breaks in between calls, because my schedule can pick up and fill up very quickly. And so in some cases, what I do is really go into I suppose the brief meditation, briefer than what it truly could be, but I guess entering into that mindfulness state where I sit down and take a few deep breaths, and then I scan my body. I see where I am, how I feel. And sometimes it takes 2-3 minutes, if that's all the time that I get, to have that time out to bring myself back into the next session. But I would be curious to know what it is that you do, considering that you are becoming more experienced over time and teaching people about mindfulness, consciousness, and meditation. Maybe I can do something better, because to be very honest with you, I am feeling a bit drained, even being very organized.
Yeah, I thank you, Alex. I really liked what you just shared just then. And the key takeaway there is you need to be intentional and consistent about taking your time for yourself. Doesn't matter how long it is, it's not the duration, but it is the intention and the commitment and the consistency of taking that small time or large time for yourself. And that's the whole thing about even about mindfulness. People say, "Oh, what, you have to sit for hours?" No, no. The first thing you do is you do baby step. You can't expect a baby to be running or sprinting when they can't even crawl yet. And so equally, your mind is like that. It needs to be trained. Think about it. When we've done so many different roles in our lives and our working lives, where they're quite different. the different types of work we've done. And each time, what did we have to do? We had the base understanding, right? But at the end, we still had to retrain our mind in the way words we use in the organization or just the processes and all that. So to think about that, it's like you're yourself, your own project, as a lot of people say. And that is, I hear quite often, and I'm guilty of this myself. I don't have the time for it. I've got so much things to do. Well, if you don't have so much time for yourself, then who's going to make time for it?
That's so true.
Yeah. So it is stepping back and just being intentional, even 5 minutes a day, where when whatever it is you do, but it is best if we just sit there and do nothing so that you don't have to do something in order to do something, in order to do something to think about something else. Are you getting what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
so the whole thing about the first step to transformation or change is taking that step back, and taking that step back is to be intentional, consistent, and be able to apply that throughout the day, either starting one time a day or just increasing it as you might do because of the nature of the work.
Yeah,
It,
so can you clarify with the intention? Because I think that it might sound natural to the mindfulness practitioners, but it's not. And I just had to learn hard way. I'm assuming people might know something that I
mm,
already know, which is not the case. How do you become intentional? If I am working for a company, or let's say the job was lost and now I'm on the path of looking for something, or maybe I'm looking for a house, whatever the situation is, how do I create that intent?
yeah. So intentional in the space of mindfulness or meditation is really like whatever happens, I'm going to do it. So it's changing your behavior. So for example, say you never brushed your teeth after lunch. Okay. You can commit to it. You've made the commitment, but if the intention isn't there, the action isn't as strong, and the likelihood of your commitment will not happen. So the intention is really having that mindset of saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it well. There's not just going to be, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it well. So setting that intention is actually putting that promise to yourself that I will start changing a certain behavior or start adopting a certain behavior. And that comes down to change, right? So change is the immediate and short term. You can change for that person for a short term, but then you're going to go back to what you're used to. Or you can transform, which is doing things differently, and that's long term. I mean, we can start taking little mindful naps for ourselves. And what does that mean? It means like sometimes just zoning out. Have you noticed that? I mean, when I used to do a lot of emails, I would zone out and I'll be like daydreaming. Some people call it daydreaming. But then when you come back, it's like, oh, okay. It's taking your mind off that immediate task that you're doing. All right. With the exception of you operating heavy machinery or flying a plane or
Oh, you wouldn't recommend that?
no,
Okay,
I
all
wouldn't.
right.
Or when you're driving, unless it's a driverless car. Mm,
Yeah.
that's
Elon
another
Musk is
conversation.
promising that the world is going to be populated with driverless cars pretty much through the end of 2021. We're going to be all good zoning out. So, but it goes it goes without saying that, if everybody was strong with, and maybe understanding that all it takes is that commitment to say, I am going to do it, then we would have had probably less stressed people. We would have had less addicts who can't get snap out of it, because all it starts with is making that commitment to say that the way I am right now, or the way I'm operating right now, is not going to, maybe get me anywhere. It's going to keep me tied to something that is not productive. So the desire to change has to be stronger than the desire to stay the same. And as soon as you realize that, then creating that intention or intent to do something different by simply making a decision. It sounds simple, but I
It
don't
it
necessarily think it's
it sounds simple. It is simple,
yes.
right? But it's difficult to uh, adopt and change is because we don't take responsibility for it.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. So what I mean by that is that we don't take responsibility for our actions. We sort of say, well, it's because everything around me. That's because our reference points have now spread out, compartmentalized in different compartments where it's very convenient for us to put things elsewhere in the shoebox things. Once we've shoebox things, like a lot of keepsakes that we have, we forget about it. And then when we take that shoebox out, well, I have a lot of shoeboxes, and you open it and you say, oh, wow, like a time capsule. You're there, oh, I remember. And then you're just wondering, well, what do I do with it? Do I keep it? Do I throw it away? Is there a process for me to let go of it? And it's sort of a time when you really need to take a good think about it. It's like everyone's talking about decluttering right now. If you don't use it for a month or 2 months, then get rid of it. I can't do that because I'm so attached to a lot of the stuff I have. So it comes with practice. It doesn't happen overnight. It's sort of like every diet plan, everything that's meant to be good for you. And it's simple. It's like if you're overweight, cut down on what you eat. But why is it so difficult? you know and it's difficult because sometimes it is hardwired into us, like the taste of sugar. Yeah. But at the same time, it is possible to change if your intention or the desire to change is strong enough inside you. Did that make sense? I know
Yeah,
it's
it
tough
does.
love, but
Yeah,
it is sort of like stepping up and owning it. God, I love that word sometimes.
well, and that's exactly it. I love when you refer to the fact that it might not seem easy, but it is easy because all it is just that one decision. But you don't come to that decision until you truly realize that that change is going to, whatever that decision is going to bring on some type of change that will create better opportunities for you. So, talking about time off, right, and personal transformation, it's never going to be harmful, right? So why don't we actually do that? Well, maybe it's because we don't understand the importance of setting that intent. So step number one, set the intent that you have to give yourself, your mind, your body, whatever you want to refer to, your state of mind, I suppose, a break, right? So in order for you to be productive, using the example of my recent client who was he's literally spending hours and hours doing some activities that, let's say like coming up with a good way to phrase an email that could be sent to a hiring manager. Well, he probably could have taken and spent a lot less time if his mind was not all over the place. If he makes a decision to say, before I write or take on a new task, and let's say write that email, what can I do? Well, if he, for example, decided to use some type of technique where he just closes his eyes and breathes, or maybe open eyes and breathes, or daydreams, whatever works for a person, then most likely he is going to come back, to write that email and see it from a completely different perspective. Okay, so we set the intent. What's the next step?
Once you set the intention, Alex, you have to put in a scheduler so that, say, at the same time every day, this alarm will go off, and that once that alarm will go off, I'll put the timer on for 5 minutes. Where what I'll do is just sit quietly, close my eyes, focus on my breath. That's all. I might hear a lot of noises around me. It might attract me. That's fine as well. If you don't want to close your eyes, then look into the horizon, look out your window and just look out the window and see what's going on out there. If nothing is going on out there, that's fine. It's sort of just like staring into empty space. I've told you that I recently got myself a rescue greyhound.
Yes.
All right. So as I take Dolly for her daily walks, there are times where she will just stop and she's not freezing because of fear. She just stops and her little nose is going sniffing. like sniffing all over. It is. It's going like this, right? And I'm just there going, we've been here so many times, why can't we just keep walking? And she was just there going, and it's like, there's nothing out there. There's literally nothing out. It's like, it's a grassland, and she is not looking downwards. She's like looking up at the sky. And it's just blue, okay? And she's still going, and I'm there going, yes, you're more sensitive in smell and sight and whatever, but we've been here so many times. Well, anyway, after she does that, or she's doing a sniffari, I'm calling it sniffari now. She's sniffing all over the place, same place, and she goes back. Right, you go 5 feet. She goes back again, and she's doing a sniffari, and you're there going, "You've done this already. Time. What are you looking for? A dead body?" But anyway, as soon as that moment is over, and I allow her to do her sniffari and whatever she's trying to sniff, and immediately when she's back, the focus on her is like she's not looking for something, right? But the focus on her, she starts like totally in that moment of running with me across the hill, wherever we're going. And that sort of constantly reminds me of the importance of when stopping, being totally aware of that moment. And that is what reflection is. You know, when you have total awareness of that moment, that means I have total awareness of my feelings, the way I'm thinking. It's easy for you to take ownership of that situation or that experience or that mindset or that thinking and then do something about it.
Mhm. So intention, planning, and focusing on, you're saying reflection, but it's more kind of focus on nothing. You just sit there, you can concentrate on your breath or doing your
You like what you were sharing with me, Alex, earlier is that you might do a full body scan. What the heck do you mean by full body scan? It's like bring your attention to like your forehead and then slowly coming down. What does that mean? It's sort of like sometimes when you're in bed and you feel that itch, you're aware of that itch, but you can pinpoint exactly where that itch is. That's what scanning is.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. And I make this mistake very frequently. I'm making an assumption that is, it's something that the person naturally would have, which looking back, what was it, the Redwood City on San Francisco when we used to travel for our job, and when we had a very, I guess, sometimes stressful because job, not because it was not pleasant, that's simply because we've traveled all the time and our schedules were completely messed up. But I probably did not realize up until that moment when I said, Tim, I need a buddy to have a meditative moment, because at that point I was still learning, but I didn't quite realize the benefit of the scanning, going into the moment where you really pay attention what's going on here at the top of your head, then bring your attention to your face. And you were that first person who truly taught me not only the ease of the meditation itself and mindfulness, but also the benefit of it and how complicated the entire meditation concept is made out there. If you look at the commercial side of things, it's giving yourself a permission to breathe and not expect anything for it to be a magical result. You just stop and you just pay attention to nothing but your breath, and then moments where you can take a few seconds to focus on at the top of your head, maybe your nose, maybe your neck, maybe your shoulders, and then you start discovering, this is where my tension is, this is where I need to maybe let go a little bit. So it's sometimes it sounds more complicated than what it is, but thank you so much for pointing out what scanning the
that I remember when I first did my scanning. When someone would say scanning, I was just imagining myself going into this huge MRI thing. So, seriously going, and it became imagination rather than awareness. The two things. So imagination takes effort. Awareness doesn't take effort. You just know. So say, for example, you're aware that there's a filing cabinet behind you, but you don't have to put focus on it. You just know it's there. For example, I'm aware that there's a screen behind me, but it's no effort for me. I just know. That's what awareness is. But imagination is for me to imagine there's a pink elephant on my screen right now behind me. And I need to put in effort to imagine that. So it's a slight difference. And that's where a lot of people find it difficult in reflection, is that they feel it takes a lot of effort. And that's where they start to imagine that when I'm reflecting, I have to do certain things. No, sometimes reflection is just doing nothing and let whatever thoughts come up, because that's what's needed. It's a bit like taking power naps. It's, holding that tennis ball. And interestingly, I saw a documentary on sleep recently. And a science test is you hold you sleep on your side, right? Yeah, you sleep on the side where one of your hand is holding a spoon, and yeah, and you're sleeping upwards. Your hand is hanging off the bed, as long as your mattress is high enough, right? Your bed's high enough, and then below your hand that's holding the spoon is uh is a platter, a metal platter or a pot or whatever. And when you fall asleep, you naturally relax and your hand lets go and the spoon hits the thing and you wake up, right? So science uses that to test how fast you're falling asleep.
Mm,
And you look at your watch before you do that, and then when it goes clang, you look at your watch again. And the shorter it is, the more or quicker you're able to fall asleep, the better it is, because either means you're very tired or that you're able to sleep. But the longer it takes, it means that there's a lot of stuff happening in your mind. So it's the same thing of not wanting to fall asleep completely is to do that. But also, um, I have found, and this is thanks to Dolly again, my dog, I'm learning a lot from her. She owns me now. Is, I'm getting up at 6 in the morning these days just to take her out for her walks. But when I come back, it's like I just need to take that nap. And I'm always so scared that, oh my goodness, if I sleep now, I'm going to be able to sleep at night and I'm going to oversleep and be late for everybody. But no, it's like, wow, I do set my alarm for that 30-minute power nap. And within 25 minutes, I'm up already and feeling very refreshed. So what I'm saying here is that your human body has an incredible capacity and capability to do things that we sort of have forgotten as we grow older. When you go for a power nap, you just set the intention as well. 15 minutes, I'll be up in 5 minutes. And around that period, you will be up. If you're not, that means you're overtired.
yeah, yeah. No, I love this, and it's quite interesting to now realize, because I've switched the environment ever since I opened my own business. What I really love about the part of, my own transformation is that I've realized that I can manage my own calendar, in opposed to when I used to work, for previous employers. I never was taught, neither, through my personal life, nor it was any type of effort or encouragement through the employers to actually learn how to take a break. Really wish I knew that sometimes pausing for 2, 3 minutes didn't require any type of, schedule official break. You can do that. So with me working and running my own business over time, I truly realized that unless I give myself not only permission, but self love to stop and pause and take small breaks, I'm not going to be good for anyone, neither for my customers, nor for partners in business, nor for my friends. And
And
that's the lesson I had to learn.
yeah, and that is such an important message, giving yourself your permission to do so, but as a manager or as a leader, giving other people the permission to do so. We see a lot of talk about this, but we don't see any modeling of it getting done. So can you imagine for our listeners out there, if you were leading a team or business, if you gave people that permission, you also need to model it. And when you model it, it's sort of like people realize, yeah, it is all right. And for both of us, it's until we out of the structure, we realize, wow, if I did that, how much more effective I could be.
Yeah. No, that's a perfect point, Sam. I really believe that there's a lot of lip service out there. You know, the trainers and the leadership coaches are coming out and they're saying that this is important. That's how you do it. But what happens as soon as that, whether it's a group coaching session or an official leadership class, that's over? And I hear that it's being done more often than not, where the attention is being paid to the fact that stress is real. And especially with the pandemic, we're seeing the increase in suicide and mental, the anxiety, depression, and other mental health illnesses. So I am giving some of the companies kudos for recognizing that and actually doing that. But you're right, unless there's going to be the modeling from the leadership, education is one piece, practice is, and that it's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. So let's go ahead and kind of recap to see, because we've covered quite a bit of options. So practically speaking, why do we need to take the time off? So no matter what transition you're going through, in a way, you're reinventing constantly, right? If you really pick up and understand that concept, that so the personal reinvention doesn't start when something huge happens, it happens on a daily basis. When we acknowledge that, then we can start asking, how do we go about actually being fully involved in the reinvention process, right? Well, before, if something were to happen, some type of traumatic event, first step is pausing, right? We're talking about pause, and the pause is taking time, and then
Schedule it. So be intentional, which means you have awareness about you want to get this done or you want to make that change. The second one is schedule it at the same time for the same frequency on a daily basis. So I will schedule it, say, for 5 p.m. for 5 minutes coming for the coming month, whatever. That turns into a habit, right? Once you start doing that, you've scheduled it in that 5 minutes, you start increasing it as you get used to it, but don't say you've done 5 minutes a day. Tomorrow I'm going to do 50. No, it's not going to be like that. So with that 5 minutes, either you close your eyes and scan yourself, which is bringing your awareness to different parts of your body, just being aware of it. Or if you don't like to do that, you can just keep your eyes open and observe everything around your own in the space you're in, every minute detail, without passing judgment on it, saying, hey, I didn't clean that for a while. Um, or you could look out the window and just enjoy the view. I mean, I'm sure that some of us have, not sure, but some of us might have a view out of the windows, but how often do we actually sit there and enjoy it? Usually it's just passing and getting to another place, you know. And that is the three easy step: intentional, schedule, and practice.
that's perfect. And it sounds easy, right? So keep it
Yeah.
simple. There's no complication in a way of incorporating those three steps, but getting there is important. And to convince yourself that it's important is probably the good question to ask yourself: what benefit am I going to get out of this by doing this? So, and the benefit is you're going to create clarity as you're proceeding to the next steps of your reinventing process. If you're looking to find something new in your life, will find some new habits to incorporate in the actions you're taking to get you there, because clearly something didn't work before.
And in addition to clarity, it's creating that space just for yourself. How
Yeah,
often do we do that?
yeah. And it goes back to self-love. If we don't
Mhm.
have self-appreciation, self-love, it's difficult. It and again, it's a learning process. But once I think once an individual reaches that point, there's a bit of liberation and freedom where you all of a sudden start thinking clearly and trying to pick out some methods on how to improve yourself as you are going through the process of reinventing.
Yeah.
I really look forward to our next episode. And if you enjoyed this discussion, please like, right there and comment below. It's going to be super helpful if you subscribe to our channel, The Third Side of the Coin on YouTube. It's going to bring our message to more people out there. We're not charging anybody for this content yet. We're doing it for free. So please make sure you forward the videos when you see that to your friends or colleagues, because the world is tough. The life is stressful, and we cannot do it just being on our own. Sometimes we just need to share our experiences with others. So thank you so much.